Lin Wan. Everyone around the block calls me W.A. and Su Chi is my only person, the girl of split instant noodles with every single night for 8 years straight. We grew up crammed into a single cramped alley room, no parents, no family connections, just two kids scraping by on odd jobs and street-side small trades. I've got a knack for reading people's faces and twisting soft, vulnerable tones to disarm anyone that tries to step on us. Su Chi's fingers fly over hidden portable keyboards, can dig up every tax record, hidden debt, and old private scandal on a target in under 10 minutes flat. We've fought off loan sharks, greedy shop owners, and violent street thugs together before. Last time a gang came around demanding protection fees, I played a helpless weeping orphan for the neighborhood cops while Sue leaked all their company illegal accounts online, tanking their boss's business overnight. We balanced each other perfectly. I handled the surface performance. She handled the invisible digital blade behind every opponent's back. We just split a single pack of cheap instant noodles when 3 black stretch limousines rolled down the potholed alley, drawing every neighbor's eyes to the street entrance. A man in tailored custom formal, where stepped out of the lead vehicle, leather shoes spotless even over cracked concrete, his whole aura reeking of old money and elite status. He stopped directly in front of our rickety metal folding table, gaze locked tight on me without glancing at Su Chi once. Miss Lin Wan, I'm the personal legal aid for the Jiang household of Beijing's core wealthy circle. He slid a thick leather folder across the chipped tabletop, voice flat, scripted with zero warmth. 18 years prior, there was a neonatal identity swap at the municipal maternity ward. You're the biological daughter of Jiang Zhen and Jiang Xilan, the family that controls the Jiang Group trillion-dollar conglomerate. I didn't rush to grab the file. My eyes stayed locked on his expression, picking apart every tiny flicker of discomfort behind his polite corporate mask, while Sue's hand slipped into her hoodie pocket, her thumb tapping a hidden mini wireless keyboard concealed inside her sleeve, running background real-time data checks on the Jiang surname and the aide's identity, without a single visible movement. I'd spent 18 years surviving off reading micro-expressions. I knew instantly there was more to this story than a random hospital error. I let my lower lip tremble, hot glistening tears pooling at the edge of my irises before I let a single drop fall, soft, shaky voice thin enough to sound fragile and abandoned. Does that mean my real mother and father are still alive? Have they been looking for me all these years? The aide's shoulders loosened a fraction, relieved my reaction matched the script they'd prepared for a poor, abandoned orphan's breakdown. Mr. and Mrs. Jiang have spent every resource tracking your whereabouts for over a decade. They're desperate to bring you home to the family estate. A faint silent vibration buzzed inside Sue's jacket. Her device finished running the full background scan. A private data alert sent straight to my phone hidden under the noodle bowl. I glanced down for half a second, skimming her text pop-up. Confirmed trillion asset Jiang clan. Adopted daughter Jiang Yan is their publicly beloved socialite heir, held up as perfect elite offspring for 18 years. Hospital swap records have sealed confidential redacted clauses buried deep in archives. I tucked the phone back out of sight, still keeping that fragile, tearful act locked in place, fingers curling tight around Sue's wrist under the table to signal my next demand. I don't have anywhere else to go if I leave this alley. Su Chi's the only family I've ever known. If you want me to come with you, she's to come too, live on the estate alongside me. If that's not allowed, I'd rather stay here with the only person that's ever cared about me. The aide hesitated, gaze flicking to Sue's worn, faded cotton shirt and sharp, cold eyes that never softened once during the whole conversation. He clearly thought Sue was some stray street friend I'd picked up, an irrelevant burden the wealthy Jiang household wouldn't tolerate. He stalled for 30 full seconds, weighing his words before relenting. I'll clear the living arrangements with the Jiang couple on your behalf. The limousine is ready to depart immediately once you've reviewed the identity verification paperwork. I nodded slowly, wiping fake tears from my cheeks with the frayed cuff of my cheap shirt, and stood to follow him, Sue falling and stepped directly beside me. We slid across the smooth leather limousine back seats, and once the partition glass slid shut separating us from the driver up front, I dropped the weeping soft act entirely, leaning my head against Sue's shoulder, voice stripped of all performative sadness. This whole swap story smells off. Something's buried under the hospital records Sue dug up. Sue's eyes narrowed, fingers still tapping tiny hidden keys to pull more archived medical filings. Jiang Yan's social media posts all follow a rigid, perfect persona schedule. Every high society event, designer outfit, and charity stunt is professionally curated by a PR team. They've spent 18 years building her flawless public image as their sole daughter. They won't welcome you without an agenda to neutralize you first. I twisted my lips into a faint, sharp smile, fingers tapping against the leather armrest in quiet anticipation. Then let's play their game first. I'm curious to see whose performance is better, their top-tier trained socialite, or the alley girl who spent 18 years mastering soft crime manipulation to survive every threat thrown at us. The limousine wound through gated private estates until we pulled up to a massive walled compound, the main villa built to mirror a European royal castle. The front door swung open as we stepped out, 3 figures waiting inside the grand marble entry hall. Jiang Zhen, stiff reserved with a cold assessing stare, Jiang Xilan with a faint disapproving frown etched into her forehead, and Jiang Mian, dressed head to toe in pristine white custom designer linen, a gentle sweet smile plastered across her face like a polished porcelain mask. Jiang Mian stepped forward the second we crossed the threshold, arms outstretched like she planned to pull me into a warm sisterly embrace. I flinched hard, stumbling backward a single step, eyes wide with manufactured inferiority and nervous timidity, exactly the reaction they'd all expected from a girl raised in poverty. Jiang Xilan's frown deepened instantly, sharp reprimand sharp enough to cut through the quiet hall air. Lin Wan, what kind of rude behavior is this? Nian came out to greet you with open arms, and you recoil like she's something dangerous. I stared down at my scuffed canvas sneakers, fingers twisting the hem of my threadbare shirt, voice small and meek, every word layered with calculated self-deprecation to plant a seed of guilt inside their heads. I've never touched clothing as expensive as hers. I'm terrified my dirty rough palms will leave stains all over that beautiful white dress. I didn't mean to be disrespectful to my new sister. Jiang Yan's perfect smile faltered for half a heartbeat, her eyes flashing a split-second flash of resentment she couldn't fully mask before she smoothed her expression back to that gentle, saintly facade. Jiang Zhen's rigid, evaluating gaze softened slightly, a flicker of pity mixing with his lingering disdain for my lowly upbringing. My tactic worked flawlessly, framing my withdrawal as humble insecurity instead of ungrateful hostility. Dinner was served on a marble dining table stacked with imported premium seafood and rare delicacies, every dish polished and garnished by private estate chefs. I only reached for the plain steamed green vegetables placed directly in front of my seat, ignoring every platter of high-end protein set out across the table. Jiang Yan picked up a full braised abalone with her silver serving spoon, placing it onto my ceramic plate with that constant saccharine grin. Sister, you have to try this imported Australian abalone. It's full of nutrients to make up for years of poor living conditions. I stared at the large, slippery seafood piece, fumbling clumsily with cheap wooden chopsticks, repeatedly failing to grip it securely before finally using a soup spoon to scoop tiny bites one at a time, slow, awkward movements drawing all eyes to my unrefined table manners. Jiang Xiulan's brows creased again, while Jiang Yan's mouth tugged upward in a quiet, hidden triumphant smirk. She thought she'd effortlessly highlighted the gap between her polished, elite refinement and my uncouth alley background to make the whole family side with her. I noted every subtle shift in their body language, filing away every tiny victory in my head, already mapping my next layer of psychological manipulation. I'd made them pity me for my hardship while letting Jiang Yan unconsciously gloat over her status, planting two conflicting emotions inside the couple that would split their loyalty long term. This first round of quiet psychological warfare was mine to win, without raising a single voice or throwing a single fit. After the meal, Jiang Yan offered to lead me upstairs to my assigned guest suite, Sue's living quarters placed directly across the hallway per the aide's earlier arrangement. I followed her up the curved marble staircase, silent and compliant on the surface, while Sue slipped off to sweep the entire floor for hidden surveillance equipment as soon as we split apart at my bedroom doorway. Once I locked the suite door behind me, Sue stepped inside 2 minutes later, pulling a tiny signal jammer out of her crossbody bag and sliding it onto the bedside nightstand. 6 hidden pinhole cameras planted in this room's ceiling moldings, wardrobe frame, and vanity lamp base. I fully disabled all recording and transmission signals from them. She tapped her portable screen, pulling up a side-by-side clothing comparison shot she pulled from Jiang Yan's purchase records. She ordered this exact off-white linen gown 3 full days before we arrived here, scheduled for delivery the day we'd first meet. She pre-planned the visual contrast between her high-end designer wear and your cheap alley shirt to humiliate you from the second you stepped through the villa gates. This is the chapter's core mid-story plot reversal I'd slowly uncovered step by step. I'd initially assumed Jiang Yan's welcoming act was spontaneous, superficial politeness, but Sue's deep digital data dig laid bare every premeditated scheme Jiang Yan had mapped out weeks in advance to visually dwarf me in front of my biological parents on day one. My internal emotional shift settled into cold, unshakable clarity. This wasn't a warm family reunion. It was a pre-planned power contest Jiang Yan had orchestrated the second she learned of my existence 18 years after the ward swap. I'd come here expecting a complicated family dynamic, but I'd walked straight into a meticulously staged psychological trap designed to erase my legitimacy before I even spoke a full sentence to my birth parents. I stretched back onto the oversized silk mattress, staring up at the crystal chandelier hanging from the sweet ceiling, quiet amusement mixing with sharp, calculated resolve in my chest. She thinks her little visual bait game will make mom and dad favor her over me? That amateur-level manipulation is nothing compared to the tricks I've learned surviving 8 years on the alley streets. Sue closed her laptop, leaning against the bedroom wall, eyes sharp and alert. Want me to leak every one of her old teenage scandals and fabricated charity records to the entire Beijing high society circle tonight to take her down fast. I shook my head, a slow, cold smirk tugging at my mouth, laying out my core motive and long game plan clearly, separating petty instant retaliation from sustained strategic dominance. My motive isn't to blow up her reputation overnight and get labeled a vicious, jealous newcomer by my birth parents. I need to slowly chip away their blind bias toward Jiang Yan bit by bit, plant constant tiny seeds of doubt inside Jiang Zhen and Jiang Xiulan's minds over weeks of subtle staged interactions. Every conflict has to unfold naturally through their own biased reactions, not my deliberate sabotage. I want them to see her manipulative core all by themselves, without me ever having to raise a hand to expose her up front. Cat and mouse games stretch out far longer and taste sweeter than a single quick explosion. I reached for the leather identity folder the legal aid left on my vanity, prying open the sealed back pocket of the paperwork stack Sue had missed earlier, pulling out a folded confidential hospital addendum slip tucked deep inside the binding. The printed text hit my eyes instantly. The ward nurse's signed handwritten notation proved the infant swap wasn't an accidental mix-up 18 years prior. Jiang Xiulan had paid a private clinic staff member to exchange the 2 newborn girls intentionally all those years ago, trading me out for a healthier, more aesthetically pleasing baby, Jiang Yan, she thought would fit elite social standards better. Every single warm, searching for lost daughter narrative the legal aid recited was a manufactured lie built on 18 years of calculated intentional abandonment. Every soft, tearful performance I'd put on that day had been for a pair of parents that had actively traded me away the second I drew my first breath. The next morning, a sharp knock sounded against my suite door before I'd even fully finished dressing. Jiang Yan stood outside holding a ceramic mug of warm milk, her soft smile back in full flawless effect, every movement practiced and polished for maximum likability. Good morning, sister. I brewed fresh warm milk for you to settle your stomach before breakfast. I accepted the mug with quiet gratitude, waiting until she spun to walk back down the hallway before dumping the entire contents into the potted foliage beside the windowsill. Sue had run a quick substance test on similar drinks Jiang Yan had posted online previously, finding trace mild sedatives she'd occasionally slipped into guest beverages to make them slow and pliant during social events. I had no intention of letting her chemically dull my sharp awareness while she plotted new schemes against me. Downstairs at the formal dining table, Jiangjin slid a matte black metal bank card across the polished oak surface toward my seat, his tone stiff and transactional, zero warmth underneath his words. There's 5 million RMB loaded onto this account as your initial monthly allowance. Purchase whatever clothing and daily supplies you need. Stop walking around in those ragged alley clothes that embarrass the Jiang household's family name. I stared at the card for a full 10 seconds, eyes glistening with manufactured vulnerable emotion, then pushed the plastic rectangle gently back across the table toward him, head hung low in sincere-looking humility. I haven't done anything to contribute to this family's business or reputation yet. I can't accept such a large sum of your hard-earned money without earning it first. I should be the one bringing care and support to you and Mom, not draining your finances before I've even settled into the estate properly. Jiang Yan's jaw tightened faintly out of frame, clearly anticipating I'd grab the card greedily and confirm her pre-planned, poor gold digger, narrative to our parents. Jiang Zhen and Jiang Xiulan exchanged a surprised sideways glance, neither expecting me to reject a 5 million lump sum outright. Jiang Xiulan's cold, hard expression softened a fraction, a flicker of guilt creeping into her features at the thought of abandoning me 18 years prior. Jiang Yan quickly cut into the quiet moment, laying a hand lightly on my forearm with saccharine enthusiasm to redirect the conversation back to her staged goodwill performance. Don't be so reserved, sister. Dad's offering this out of genuine love for you. Let's head straight to the downtown luxury shopping mall after breakfast. I'll pick out a full wardrobe of designer pieces for you with my own personal black credit card. No need to touch Dad's allowance funds at all. I nodded with meek, thankful compliance, already mapping out every countermove I'd deploy to dismantle her public humiliate scheme before we even stepped foot inside the mall. Sue tagged along with us dressed in a crisp all-black blazer, posing as my personal bodyguard per the agreement we'd struck with the household legal aid, her portable surveillance recorder running non-stop inside her crossbody bag to capture every word Jiang Yan uttered throughout the trip. Inside the high-end boutique, Jiang paraded me between rack after rack of $1,000 designer gowns, grabbing dozens of pieces off hangers and shoving them into the sales associate's arms to ring up, her voice loud enough for every other customer in the shop to overhear her grand charitable display toward the poor newly found sister. She timed the entire shopping trip to coincide with multiple Beijing socialite acquaintances' regular boutique visits, fully planning to broadcast her generous selfless act to the whole elite circle while framing me as a grateful charity case. Once the associate tallied up the full mountain of garments, Jiang pulled her unlimited black credit card out of her clutch and handed it over to the register terminal, her smile wide and self-satisfied as she glanced around at the surrounding shoppers eating up her performance. The second the payment receipt printed out, I pulled out my personal cell phone and dialed Jiang Zhen's direct private number without a single word to Jiang Yan, holding the call on speakerphone so everyone within earshot could hear my calm, sincere tone loud and clear. Dad, I'm calling to ask a quick favor. Jiang Yan just purchased a full wardrobe of designer clothing on her own card for me, and I don't feel comfortable letting her cover such an enormous expense out of her personal account. Could you please transfer the exact total amount of this receipt straight to her bank account to reimburse her fully? I'd rather owe the family collectively than accept costly personal gifts from my sister that I can't reciprocate back to her later on. Every ounce of Jiang Yan's smug, triumphant energy evaporated in an instant. She'd orchestrated the entire shopping spree to parade her wealth and generosity in front of bystanders, expecting me to silently accept her costly gifts and appear reliant on her charity, but my simple phone call forced her grand performative gesture to turn into a meaningless corporate expense covered by our father instead of a selfless, personal sacrifice from her side. All the curious, wealthy shoppers lingering around the racks shot quiet, judgmental glances her way, realizing her big show of kindness was nothing more than a staged publicity stunt funded by the Jiang Group's wallet, not her own independent fortune. This pivotal mid-chapter plot reversal rewrote the entire power dynamic of the mall scene. Jiang Yan's core motive had been to publicly dwarf me via her financial generosity and paint me as a destitute burden leeching off her family's resources. My calm, reasonable phone call stripped every ounce of clout from her staged charitable act, shifting a room's collective perception to see her as a vain attention seeker desperate for social clout instead of a warm, loving sibling. My internal emotional shift was subtle but definitive. Earlier, I'd only viewed her as a petty manipulator out for status. Now I fully grasped how every single interaction with me was a carefully calculated PR stunt for her high society brand, and I'd never again fall for any of her surface-level kind gestures without pre-planned countermeasures ready to flip the narrative against her. Jiang Yan rushed to end the shopping trip 30 minutes ahead of schedule, cutting our afternoon short once her grand public goodwill performance backfired spectacularly on her. On the ride back to the villa inside her private luxury sedan, she twisted to face me, her soft smile gone, voice laced with thinly veiled icy resentment masked behind fake gentle concern. Sister, I only wanted to do something nice for you. Why'd you call Dad and make me look silly in front of all those people shopping? I tilted my head, eyes wide with innocent confusion, delivering lines crafted to plant deeper division between her and our parents, while sounding completely harmless on the surface. I didn't intend to embarrass you at all. I just didn't want to take advantage of your personal finances when Dad's family allowance fund is already set aside to cover all my living expenses. Wouldn't it feel unfair to you if I let you spend tens of thousands on me with no way to pay you back later? She couldn't find a logical rebuttal to my quiet, reasonable framing, her mouth opening and shutting repeatedly as she struggled to concoct a retort that wouldn't make her sound greedy or vain in front of Sue's running recording device. The car ride home passed in heavy, awkward silence, Jiang Yan staring out the passenger window seething with unspoken frustration the entire drive. Back at the villa's entry hall, Zhang Zhen was waiting by the marble staircase, having received the reimbursement transfer alert I prompted him to send to Zhang Yan's account mid-shopping trip. He greeted me with a far warmer expression than he'd carried the day prior, handing over a second unlimited black metal card without waiting for me to decline it again. This one has no monthly spending cap whatsoever. Use it for whatever you need whenever you like. No need to hesitate or worry about repaying me back for anything. I stared at the card, then glanced at Zhang Yan standing off to the side, her face tight and pale with suppressed jealousy, before slowly accepting the black card and murmuring a quiet, genuine-sounding thank you to our father. I knew I'd successfully pulled off the first major shift in our parents' biased perspective, where they'd once automatically favored Zhang Yan's polished elite demeanor. They'd now begun to see my quiet humility and reasonable boundaries as far more sincere and authentic than her loud performative charity displays. That evening after dinner, Sue pulled up full archived financial transaction records on her laptop and slid the screen toward me. A new bombshell piece of evidence front and center. Zhang Yan had secretly submitted a formal written application to the Jiang Group Board of Directors that morning, requesting exclusive sole inheritance rights to the entire family conglomerate's assets, arguing my 18 years spent outside elite high society circles disqualified me from holding equal ownership. Stake in the family business. Every staged shopping trip, every soft welcoming smile, every small kind gesture she'd offered me since day one was merely a pre-planned campaign to convince the board she was the only viable legitimate heir before I could establish any footing within the household power structure. I closed the laptop lid slowly, fingers brushing the smooth metal of the unlimited black card tucked inside my crossbody bag, a cold, unyielding resolve settling deep in my bones. She wasn't just jealous of my biological daughter status. She planned to erase my legal claim to every single asset belonging to me by birth, and she'd begun filing official corporate paperwork to strip my inheritance away less than 48 hours after we'd first met face-to-face at the villa gates. The day before Zheng Xiulan's birthday gala, Zhang Yan knocked on my sweet door again, her arms folded over a long garment bag draped over one forearm. Her tone was honeyed, every gesture polished to radiate sisterly thoughtfulness, like she'd spent hours rehearsing this act in front of a mirror. Sister, I picked out a custom light blue gown just for tomorrow's banquet. The tailor adjusted every measurement to fit your frame perfectly. It'll make you stand out among all the socialite guests tonight. I reached out to take the bag, my fingers brushing the thin fabric of the zipper while keeping my expression soft and grateful on the surface. Deep down, I'd already anticipated some underhanded trick hidden inside the garment. Every single kind gift she'd offered since I stepped foot in the manor carried a hidden agenda. My motive for playing along was simple. I needed to let her fully execute her plan first, then dismantle it in front of hundreds of upper-class guests to completely shatter her flawless public persona, rather than expose her privately and give her room to fabric excuses to our parents. Sue waited until Zhang Yan left the hallway before unzipping the garment bag completely, pulling the fabric taut under the suite's strong desk lamp, a portable composition tester whirring in her palm as she scanned every inch of the dress material. Within 2 minutes, Sue's screen flashed a critical warning mark, the mid-chapter twist unfolding clear before our eyes. The fabric's coated with a special water-soluble chemical agent. Sue pointed to the hemline lining, zooming in on the test data displayed on her device. Once any liquid touches the surface, the whole material loses opacity instantly, turning fully translucent under banquet lighting. She's planning to accidentally spill wine on you in front of every guest tonight, stripping you of all dignity in front of Beijing's entire high society circle. I traced the delicate embroidery on the gown's shoulder strap with one finger, cold amusement rising in my chest as I processed her vicious scheme. I thought she might try to frame me for rudeness or petty theft at the party, but she'd gone far more ruthless. She intended to publicly strip me bare to ruin my reputation permanently, so the board of directors would side with her exclusive inheritance application without hesitation. My inner emotional shift settled into unshakable calm. Any lingering tiny hope that she might harbor a shred of sisterly goodwill vanished entirely. This was not petty sibling jealousy. It was a calculated career-ending sabotage targeting my legal inheritance rights. Swap the gown's inner lining fabric completely tonight. I instructed Sue plainly, handing over a stack of plain, opaque matching silk I'd ordered online 3 days prior as a precautionary measure. Keep the outer embroidery and color identical, only replace the toxic-coated base layer. The dress will look exactly the same, but no liquid on earth can make it transparent anymore. We'll leave the original damaged lining stored as full evidence, in case we need to present it later to the Jiang board. Sue nodded, immediately pulling out her sewing kit hidden in her luggage, spending the entire evening carefully restitching the gown's interior, while I compiled all prior proof of Zhang Yan's plots into an encrypted cloud archive, the luxury mall reimbursement call recordings, her inheritance board application screenshots, the sedative milk substance test reports, and now the scanned chemical data from the banquet gown fabric. Every piece of evidence built a complete timeline of her premeditated attempts to eliminate my standing in the Jiang household. The next evening, the manor's banquet hall overflowed with hundreds of wealthy guests, business partners, and family relatives, crystal chandeliers casting warm golden light over every polished marble surface. I wore the altered light blue gown, walking beside Sue like a quiet, composed pair, every guest's curious gaze drifting toward me, the long-lost biological daughter the Zhang family had spent 18 years searching for. Zhang Yan appeared minutes later in a bright pink custom couture dress, her makeup airbrushed to perfection, her every movement staged to draw every eye to herself as the household's long-standing perfect heiress. She glided straight toward me, holding 2 full crystal wine goblets, a faint hidden smirk tucked into the corner of her lips only I could catch. Sister, you've barely spoken to anyone since we walked in. This vintage red wine's the estate's finest vintage. Let's raise a glass to Mom's birthday together. I accepted the goblet slowly, fingers wrapped lightly around the stem, fully aware of what she planned to do in the next 3 seconds. Her body language told me everything. She positioned her feet to step sideways into me, forcing the wine to splash all over my gown and trigger the transparent chemical coating. As Jiang shifted her weight to fake an accidental stumble, I mimicked a minor slip of my own footing a split second earlier, twisting my wrist slightly so the full contents of my wine goblet surged forward, pouring every drop straight down the front of her pink couture gown instead of my own blue dress. A shrill, startled scream burst out of Jiang Yan's throat the second the red liquid soaked into her fabric. All surrounding guests froze mid-conversation, every head snapping toward our position as they watched the pink material rapidly turn translucent under the overhead chandelier lights, her undergarments fully visible through the soaked fabric layers for dozens of onlookers to witness. Panic washed over Jiang Yan's face instantly, her hands flying up to cover her chest as she staggered backward, desperate to block the view of the hundreds of staring socialites. The elegant, flawless image she curated for 18 years shattered in a single second of her own trap backfiring on her. Jiang Zhen and Jiang Shulan rushed over at once, both stunned speechless at the sight of their adopted daughter's ruined couture dress, the elite crowd murmuring and whispering nonstop around us. I wore a mask of genuine shock and innocent remorse, stepping forward with a crumpled linen napkin held out toward her, voice thin and trembling with manufactured guilt. I'm so terribly sorry, Nian. My heel slipped on the marble floor. I never meant to spill wine all over your beautiful dress. I can't believe I messed up Mom's birthday celebration like this. Every word I spoke planted a seed of doubt in every guest's mind. I was the awkward, newly returned orphan who'd made an innocent accident, while Jiang Nian's hysterical overreaction made her appear vain and overly dramatic to the crowd. No one suspected she'd engineered the exact same liquid trap to humiliate me, then suffer the consequence of her own scheme due to Sue's fabric replacement work. Jiang Shulan pulled Jiang Yan away toward a private lounge to let her change clothes, her expression tight with quiet disappointment, while Jiang Zhen lingered beside me, clapping my shoulder gently in a rare show of comfort he'd never offered before. Don't blame yourself over a small accident. The party's far more important than a damaged dress. I nodded, lowering my gaze to feign shame, inwardly cataloging another major victory in the quiet power struggle unfolding inside the Jiang household. Jiang Yan's attempt to publicly ruin me had backfired spectacularly, eroding years of carefully built perfect socialite credibility in front of every single business contact the Jiang Group relied on for major partnerships. Half an hour passed before Jiang Yan returned to the banquet hall in a plain spare silk dress borrowed from a maid's storage closet, her eyes red and puffy from crying in the lounge. She made a beeline straight for my position in the corner of the ballroom, voice sharp and hushed so only Sue and I could hear her vicious accusations. You swapped the dress fabric behind my back. You knew exactly what that liquid coating would do and cheated to turn my plan against me. I tilted my head. Innocent confusion etched across my facial features, holding out the original toxic-lined garment bag Sue had brought to the banquet hidden inside her hand luggage. I have no idea what chemical coating you're talking about. This is the exact dress you handed me yesterday, untouched aside from a minor lining adjustment my seamstress recommended for comfort. If there's any strange material issue, you have to take that up with the tailor you commissioned it from. Sue lifted her portable testing device for Jiang Yan to see the stored skin footage and chemical lab data, every time-stamped recording proving we'd only modified the inner lining after she delivered the gown to our suite. There was no way for Jiang Yan to deny the evidence without openly admitting she'd intentionally prepared a semi-transparent trap dress for me, a confession that would destroy her standing with the Jiang couple permanently. Jiang Yan's jaw locked tight, unable to retort with a single logical counterargument, spinning on her heel and storming off toward the far end of the hall to avoid drawing more onlookers' judgmental stares. As the banquet wound down late that night, a private legal courier delivered a sealed, confidential board document to my suite, left at the door while I attended the birthday gala. I broke the wax seal to unfold the paperwork, my breath catching at the printed contents. Jiang Yan had submitted supplementary written materials to the Jiang Group board that same afternoon, claiming my reckless, unrefined behavior at the birthday banquet disqualified me from all shared inheritance rights, demanding the board immediately vote to transfer 100% of all family assets solely to her name. The document included witness statements she'd coerced several household maids into signing under threat of termination, all fabricated accounts framing me as a destructive troublemaker bent on ruining the family's social reputation. I folded the papers neatly and stored them alongside my growing stack of irrefutable counter-evidence, fully aware the final board showdown was rapidly approaching, and I already held every piece of proof required to completely dismantle all her fraudulent claims in front of every director.